The first meeting between humans and aliens happened on a quiet Tuesday morning. It wasn't the dramatic, explosive event that movies love to show. Instead, it was calm, almost too calm. A large alien ship had appeared in the sky, hovering silently above Earth. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the sunlight in ways that made it hard to look at for too long. After hours of tense waiting, the aliens finally sent a message. They wanted to talk. A team of scientists and diplomats was quickly assembled to meet them. Among them was Dr. Laura Bennett, a biologist known for her sharp mind and steady nerves. She had spent years studying the possibility of alien life, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Joining her was Eric Dawson, an engineer with a knack for solving problems under pressure. Together, they boarded a small spacecraft that would take them to the alien vessel. As they approached the massive ship, Laura couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. The craft opened a hatch, pulling them inside with invisible forces. When the doors slid open, they were greeted by towering beings with smooth silver skin and glowing eyes. These were the Valith, a species far older and more advanced than humanity. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, and their voices carried a strange hum when they spoke through translation devices. Zinar, the Valith ambassador, stepped forward. He introduced himself and explained that his people had been observing Earth for some time. "We wish to understand your kind," he said, his tone polite but distant. "But there are aspects of your behavior we find difficult to comprehend." Laura exchanged a glance with Eric before responding. "We're happy to answer your questions," she said carefully. "Understanding each other is the first step toward friendship." For the next few hours, the two groups exchanged information. The Valith shared details about their technology, which was centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. In return, Laura and Eric described human history, culture, and achievements. At one point, Zinar paused and tilted his head slightly, a gesture that seemed to indicate curiosity, or perhaps confusion. "There is something we do not understand," Zinar said after a moment. "Your species engages in reproductive activities not solely for the purpose of creating offspring. Is this correct?" Laura blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Well, yes," she replied slowly. "Humans form relationships based on love and companionship. Physical intimacy is often an expression of those feelings." Zinar's glowing eyes dimmed briefly, as if processing the information. "This is unusual," he said. "Among my people, reproduction is purely functional. Emotional attachment plays no role." Eric leaned forward, trying to lighten the mood. "Let's just say humans like to enjoy themselves," he joked. The room fell silent. The Valith stared at him blankly, clearly unamused. Laura shot Eric a quick glare before turning back to Zinar. "What we mean is, emotions are very important to us," she explained. "They shape how we live, how we connect, and even how we survive." Zinar didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to another Valith standing nearby and whispered something in their language. Whatever he said, it didn't sound positive. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. She realized then that this conversation might have consequences neither side had anticipated. By the end of the meeting, both groups agreed to continue talking. But as Laura and Eric left the alien ship, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had just opened a door they might not be able to close. Back on Earth, news of the alien meeting spread quickly. People were both fascinated and nervous about what had happened. Social media buzzed with theories and opinions. Some celebrated the idea of making contact with intelligent life, while others worried that humanity might be in danger. Governments held emergency meetings to discuss the situation, but no one could agree on what to do next. The only thing everyone seemed to focus on was the strange detail about human intimacy. It became the talk of the planet. Meanwhile, aboard the alien ship, Laura and Eric found themselves under increasing scrutiny. Zinar assigned one of his aides, Kellen, to learn more about human behavior. Kellen was younger than Zinar and seemed less rigid, though still cautious. He asked endless questions, many of which made Laura uncomfortable. Why do humans prioritize pleasure over efficiency? He asked during one session. Wouldn't it make more sense to focus only on survival? Laura hesitated before answering. Not everything we do has to have a practical purpose, she said. Sometimes, doing things just because they feel good is part of being alive. Kalen tilted his head, as if trying to process her words. But doesn't that distract you from important tasks? From improving yourselves? It can, Laura admitted. But it also brings joy, creativity, and connection. Those things matter too. Kalen didn't seem convinced, but he nodded anyway. Over time, he began asking about other aspects of human life. Art, music, friendships, even laughter. Each answer seemed to puzzle him further, yet there was a flicker of curiosity in his glowing eyes. Laura noticed it and wondered if he might be starting to see humans in a different light. On Earth, public interest in the aliens grew stronger every day. News outlets broadcast interviews with experts who tried to explain Veilith culture, or at least what little was known about it. One report claimed that the Veilith viewed emotions as weaknesses, comparing them to diseases that needed curing. This sparked heated debates online. Some argued that humanity should try to emulate the aliens' logical approach, while others insisted that emotions were what made humans special. Laura and Eric kept their findings private for now, knowing how sensitive the topic was. But tensions aboard the alien ship were rising. During one exchange, Zinar brought up the subject of human reproduction again. Your practices seem inefficient, he said bluntly. Why waste resources on activities that serve no clear purpose? Eric frowned. Love isn't a waste of resources, he shot back. It's what keeps people together, what helps us care for each other. You don't understand because your species doesn't have it. Zinar's expression didn't change. He didn't appear offended or angry, but Laura could tell the comment bothered him. She stepped in quickly. What Eric means is that our emotions drive us to protect and support one another. That's why humans have survived for so long. Zinar studied her for a moment before responding. Survival is admirable, he said, but so is progress. Perhaps there is value in understanding your methods, though they are perplexing. As days passed, Laura began to notice subtle shifts in the Veilith's attitude. While Zinar remained formal and distant, Kellen seemed more willing to engage. He started asking personal questions, like whether Laura had ever been in love, or how she felt when someone close to her died. These conversations were awkward at first, but Laura realized they might be key to building trust. One evening, after a particularly long session, Kellen lingered behind. Do all humans experience these emotions? He asked quietly. Even the painful ones? Yes, Laura replied. The bad feelings are hard, but they're part of life. They teach us how to grow and appreciate the good moments. Kalen looked thoughtful. For a brief second, his glowing eyes softened. Then he straightened up and walked away without another word. Laura sighed, feeling both hopeful and uneasy. She knew the Veilith still didn't fully grasp human nature, and maybe never would. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Kellen's curiosity could lead to something important. If nothing else, it gave her hope that understanding wasn't completely out of reach. By the end of the week, plans were made for a cultural exchange program. Both sides agreed to visit each other's worlds to learn more. Laura and Eric prepared to travel to the Veilith homeworld, while a delegation of aliens would come to Earth. As exciting as it sounded, Laura couldn't ignore the risks involved. She hoped this decision wouldn't lead to disaster. But deep down, she knew anything was possible when two such different species came face to face. The cultural exchange program began with a mix of excitement and tension. Laura and Eric, along with a small group of scientists and diplomats, boarded a Veilith transport ship headed to the aliens' homeworld. The journey was unlike anything they had ever experienced. The ship moved through space without any visible engines or windows, and the interior was stark and cold, filled with smooth metallic surfaces that glowed faintly. There were no chairs or beds, just flat platforms where the humans could sit or lie down. It was clear that comfort wasn't a priority for the Valeth. When they arrived, the differences between the two species became even more obvious. The Valeth homeworld was a barren planet with towering structures made of the same shimmering metal as their ships. Everything was perfectly organized, with no signs of nature or color. The air felt sterile, almost lifeless. Laura couldn't help but compare it to Earth, with its vibrant landscapes and chaotic cities. She wondered how the Valeth could live in such a rigid environment without feeling trapped. Kalen acted as their guide, explaining how his society functioned. "Every action has a purpose here," he said. "We do not waste time on unnecessary things." He pointed to a group of Valeth working together to assemble a machine. "They are efficient. Their efforts contribute directly to the survival and progress of our species." Laura nodded politely but noticed something missing: emotion. The Valeth didn't smile, laugh, or even pause to rest. They worked tirelessly, like machines programmed for one task after another. It was impressive, but also unsettling. "Don't you ever take a break?" she asked. "Or do something just because it makes you happy?" Kellen hesitated before answering. "Happiness is not essential for survival," he said. "It does not improve efficiency." Eric chimed in, unable to hide his frustration. "But isn't life supposed to be about more than just surviving? Don't you want to enjoy it?" Kalen didn't respond right away. Instead, he led them to a large hall where Valeth gathered to share information. There were no speeches, celebrations, or displays of individuality, just rows of aliens exchanging data through glowing panels on their wrists. Laura realized that this was as close to community as the Valeth got. Back on Earth, the alien delegation was having an equally eye-opening experience. The Valeth visitors struggled to understand human rituals and behaviors. At a wedding ceremony they attended, they watched in silence as the bride and groom exchanged vows. One of the aliens, named Vren, tilted his head and asked, "Why do you make promises when your emotions are so unpredictable? Isn't this inefficient?" The question caught the couple off guard, but a guest nearby laughed nervously and replied, "Love isn't about being efficient. It's about trusting someone enough to try, even if it doesn't always work out." Vren looked confused but said nothing. Later, during a casual gathering at a park, the aliens observed humans dancing, playing games, and laughing together. When a young couple kissed under a tree, some of the Valeth recoiled in disgust. "This behavior seems primitive," one muttered. "How can your species focus on survival when you spend so much energy on frivolous actions?" Despite their discomfort, the Valeth couldn't deny the energy and warmth of human interactions. Even Zinar, who had remained distant throughout the exchange, seemed intrigued by the way people supported each other during difficult times. He quietly observed a family comforting a crying child and remarked, "Your emotional bonds appear to serve a purpose, though I still do not fully understand it." As the days passed, Laura and Eric grew more aware of how vast the gap was between humans and the Valeth. While the aliens valued logic and order, humans thrived on chaos, creativity, and connection. Both sides had much to learn, but misunderstandings lingered beneath the surface. Laura worried that these differences might lead to conflict rather than cooperation. Still, she held on to hope that understanding could bridge the divide. By the time the cultural exchange ended, both groups returned to their respective worlds with mixed feelings. The humans admired the Valeth's efficiency and advanced technology, but they missed the vibrancy of Earth. The Valeth, on the other hand, found human emotions baffling yet strangely compelling. For Kellen, the experience left him with questions he couldn't ignore, and a growing curiosity about what it meant to truly live. Tensions began to rise as the cultural exchange program continued. Back on Earth, strange things started happening. Things that no one could explain at first. People who were usually calm and kind suddenly became angry or jealous for no clear reason. Arguments broke out in workplaces, families fought over small issues, and even strangers clashed in public spaces. Governments scrambled to figure out what was causing this sudden shift in behavior. Laura and Eric noticed it too when they returned from the Valeth homeworld. They had hoped their trip would bring better understanding between the two species, but instead, humanity seemed to be falling apart. News reports showed cities filled with chaos, and social media was flooded with videos of people lashing out at one another. Laura felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Something wasn't right. It didn't take long for them to suspect the Valeth. During their time on the alien planet, they had seen how advanced the Valeth were with technology. If anyone could manipulate human emotions, it was them. But why would they do such a thing? And how? Laura decided to confront Sinar directly. She sent a message requesting an urgent meeting, and to her relief, he agreed. When she arrived at the designated location, a neutral space orbiting Earth where both sides could meet safely, Sinar greeted her with his usual cold demeanor. Kalen stood nearby, watching silently. "What's going on?" Laura demanded, skipping formalities. "People on Earth are losing control of their emotions. It's like someone is amplifying the worst parts of us. Did you have something to do with this?" Zinar's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "We did not," he said firmly. "But I admit, there are factions within my government that view your species as unstable. They believe your emotions make you dangerous." Laura's heart sank. "So they're experimenting on us, using our own feelings against us." Before Zinar could answer, Kalen stepped forward. His voice was hesitant but sincere. "There is a rogue group among us. They see your emotional nature as a weakness to exploit. They've developed technology to influence your minds, hoping to destabilize your society." Eric clenched his fists. "That's insane. You can't just mess with people's lives like that." Kalen looked down, guilt flickering across his face. "I only learned about it recently. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I feared punishment." Laura took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "If we don't stop this, humanity could tear itself apart. Can you help us?" Zinar hesitated. Helping humans would mean going against his own people, risking his position, and possibly his life. But after a long pause, he nodded slowly. "This behavior dishonors us," he said. "We will assist you in stopping it." With Zinar's reluctant cooperation, Laura, Eric, and Kalen worked together to locate the source of the interference. The rogue faction had set up secret stations around Earth, broadcasting signals designed to amplify negative emotions. Using Valeth technology, they tracked down each station and disabled the equipment. It was a race against time, as the longer the signals remained active, the worse the situation on Earth became. As they worked, Laura found herself growing closer to Kalen. Despite his initial skepticism about human emotions, he seemed genuinely moved by their resilience and determination. "You risk so much for one another," he said during one quiet moment. "Even when it seems hopeless, you keep trying. That is admirable." Laura smiled faintly. "Emotions can hurt, but they also give us strength. Maybe someday your people will understand that." Finally, after days of intense effort, the last signal was shut down. Almost immediately, the chaos on Earth began to subside. People calmed down, and communities worked together to rebuild trust and repair relationships. Governments issued statements thanking the Valeth for their help, though few knew the full truth behind the crisis. For Zinar, the experience was humbling. He realized that while humans were unpredictable and sometimes reckless, their capacity for compassion and unity was a power all its own. As for Kalen, he couldn't shake the lessons he learned about love, connection, and the beauty of imperfection. Though the immediate danger had passed, Laura knew this was only the beginning. Humanity and the Valeth still had much to learn from each other, but for now, they had taken a crucial step toward peace. The aftermath of the emotional signal crisis left both humans and Valeth at a crossroads. Zinar faced immense pressure from his own government for aiding humanity instead of siding with the rogue faction. Back on the alien ship, debates raged among the Valeth leadership. Some argued that Zinar's actions had weakened their authority, while others quietly admitted that his decision might have saved Earth and possibly prevented a larger conflict. For Callan, the situation was even more complicated. His role in helping Laura and Eric had not gone unnoticed, and whispers of betrayal spread among his peers. Yet he couldn't bring himself to regret it. The time he spent observing human behavior had changed him in ways he couldn't fully explain. He began to see emotions not as weaknesses, but as forces that could drive incredible acts of courage, creativity, and unity. It made him question everything he had ever been taught about logic and efficiency. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as possible after such an event. Governments worked hard to rebuild trust within their populations, emphasizing the importance of cooperation over division. People were still shaken by how quickly anger and jealousy had spiraled out of control, but many also felt grateful for the chance to reset and reconnect with loved ones. Laura became a key figure in these efforts, speaking publicly about the value of empathy and understanding, not just between individuals but between species. Despite the progress, tensions lingered. Some factions within the Valeth remained hostile toward humanity, viewing them as unpredictable and dangerous. They argued that the recent crisis proved humans couldn't be trusted. These voices grew louder, pushing for stricter oversight of Earth. Zinar knew he had to act quickly before the situation escalated further. One evening, aboard the Valeth ship, Zinar called a meeting with his top advisors, including Callan. "We cannot continue down this path," he said firmly. "Attempting to control humanity will only lead to more conflict. Instead, we must find a way to coexist." "But how?" one advisor asked. "Their emotions make them volatile. How can we trust them?" Zinar turned to Callan, who hesitated before speaking. "Perhaps trust is not something we give freely," he said softly. "Perhaps it is something we build over time. Humans are flawed, yes, but they are also capable of great kindness and sacrifice. If we dismiss them entirely, we lose the opportunity to learn from them." The room fell silent as the other Valeth considered his words. For beings who valued logic above all else, the idea of embracing uncertainty was daunting, but not impossible. Meanwhile, Laura and Eric prepared for another meeting with the Valeth. This time, they'd brought along representatives from various cultures and communities around the world. Their goal was to showcase the diversity of human experiences and highlight the strengths that came from emotional connections. Musicians performed heartfelt songs, artists displayed colorful paintings, and storytellers shared tales of love and resilience. Even simple acts like sharing meals or laughing together were demonstrated to show the warmth and joy that defined human relationships. At first, the Valeth watched with detached curiosity. But as the presentations continued, subtle changes began to appear. Some leaned forward slightly, intrigued by the passion behind the performances. Others exchanged quiet glances, as if questioning their long-held beliefs about emotions being unnecessary. By the end of the gathering, Zinar stepped forward to address the crowd. "Your species is unlike any we have encountered," he said. "Your emotions may cause chaos, but they also..." The fragile peace between humans and the Valeth began to take root in small but meaningful ways. Zinar, despite facing criticism from hardline factions within his government, stood firm in his belief that cooperation was better than conflict. He proposed a joint initiative, a permanent cultural exchange program where humans and Valeth could continue learning from each other. The idea was met with resistance on both sides, but Laura and Callan worked tirelessly to build support for it. Laura traveled around Earth, speaking at universities, community centers, and international conferences. She emphasized the importance of patience and openness when dealing with the Valeth. "They're not like us," she often said, "but that doesn't mean we can't find common ground. We've already seen what happens when fear and misunderstanding drive our actions." Callan played a similar role among his own people. Though he faced hostility from some Valeth who viewed him as a traitor, he remained steadfast. "Humans are emotional beings," he explained during one meeting. "But those emotions have led them to create art, science, and bonds stronger than anything we know. Shouldn't we try to understand why? Slowly, attitudes began to shift. A group of young Valeth scientists expressed interest in studying human creativity, particularly music and storytelling. In return, human researchers were invited to explore Valeth technology, which offered solutions to many of Earth's environmental and energy challenges. These exchanges fostered a sense of mutual respect, even if deep differences still existed. One day, Laura received an unexpected invitation from Zinar. He asked her to join him aboard the Valeth ship for a special announcement. When she arrived, accompanied by Eric, she found a large gathering of both humans and Valeth waiting. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Zinar stepped forward, his glowing eyes scanning the crowd. For too long, he began, we have judged others based on what makes them different. But difference is not weakness, it is strength. Today, I propose a new alliance between our species. Together, we will work to solve shared problems and learn from one another. His words were met with stunned silence, followed by cautious applause. Laura felt tears welling up in her eyes. It wasn't just the speech, it was the realization that this moment marked a turning point. For the first time, there was genuine hope for a future where humans and Valeth could coexist peacefully. After the announcement, Callan approached Laura and Eric. There's something else, he said quietly. He handed them a small device, a prototype designed to monitor and stabilize human emotions. It's not perfect, but it could help prevent another crisis like the last one. Laura examined the device, her hands trembling slightly. This could change everything, she whispered. Thank you. Callan hesitated before speaking again. I want to visit Earth more often, he admitted, to keep learning. To see if your way of life might offer answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask. Eric grinned. Well, you're always welcome. Just don't expect us to make sense all the time. Callan tilted his head, confused. That's oddly comforting, he said after a pause. As weeks turned into months, the alliance grew stronger. Human musicians composed pieces inspired by the shimmering glow of Valeth ships, while Valeth engineers developed tools to clean polluted oceans. Children on Earth learned about the stars through stories told by visiting aliens, and young Valeth studied human history, marveling at how far humanity had come despite its flaws. Not everyone was happy about the partnership. Some humans feared losing their independence, while certain Valeth leaders worried about diluting their culture. But for every voice of doubt, there were dozens more calling for unity. Laura often reflected on how far they'd come since that first awkward meeting aboard the alien ship. What had started as confusion and mistrust had blossomed into something extraordinary. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, misunderstandings, and moments of frustration. But it was real. One evening, as she watched a sunset with Callan, she realized how much he had changed. His once rigid demeanor had softened, replaced by curiosity and even hints of emotion. Do you ever think about staying here? She asked lightly. Callan considered the question for a moment. Perhaps someday, he replied. But for now, I'm content to keep learning. From you, from your world, and from myself. In that quiet moment, surrounded by colors neither of them fully understood, they both knew the journey was far from over. Yet, for the first time, it felt like a journey worth taking. Together, years passed, and the alliance between humans and the Valeth grew stronger. The initial skepticism and fear had faded, replaced by a growing sense of cooperation and mutual respect. Earth flourished under the influence of Valeth technology, which helped solve many long-standing problems like pollution, disease, and energy shortages. In return, humanity's creativity and passion inspired the Valeth to explore new ways of thinking. They began experimenting with art, music, and even simple acts of kindness. Things they once dismissed as inefficient, but now saw as enriching. Laura became a symbol of this new era. She traveled frequently between Earth and the Valeth homeworld, working to strengthen the bond between the two species. Her efforts earned her recognition not just on Earth but among the Valeth as well. Callan, who had started as her guide during the cultural exchange, became her closest ally, and perhaps something more. Though their relationship remained unspoken, there was an undeniable connection between them, built on years of shared experiences and trust. Callan himself had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Once rigid and logical, he now embraced curiosity and wonder. He spent hours listening to human music, marveling at its ability to evoke emotions without words. He even tried painting, though his first attempts were clumsy and abstract. "It feels freeing," he told Laura one day, holding up a canvas covered in swirls of color. "To create something that doesn't need a purpose." Laura smiled. "That's what makes it beautiful," she said. "Sometimes, the best things are the ones we don't fully understand." On Earth, the presence of the Valith became a normal part of life. Their sleek ships dotted the skies, and their ambassadors walked among humans, learning and sharing knowledge. Schools taught children about the importance of diversity, not just within humanity, but across species. Festivals celebrated the blending of cultures, with humans and Valith coming together to share food, stories, and laughter. But challenges remained. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some humans resented the Valith for their advanced technology, feeling overshadowed or left behind. A few Valith leaders still viewed human emotions as unpredictable and dangerous, advocating for stricter control over Earth's development. These tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening to disrupt the fragile peace. One day, a crisis emerged that tested the alliance. A natural disaster struck a remote region of Earth, causing widespread destruction. Rescue efforts were underway, but the scale of the disaster overwhelmed local resources. Without hesitation, Callan led a team of Valith engineers to assist. Using their advanced tools, they stabilized collapsing structures, purified contaminated water, and provided medical aid to survivors. When the dust settled, the people of the affected region expressed their gratitude, not just to the Valith, but to humanity as well. "We couldn't have done it alone," one community leader said during a ceremony honoring the rescue teams. "This proves that when we work together, there's nothing we can't overcome." The event silenced many critics and strengthened the bond between the two species. Even some of the most skeptical Valith admitted that humanity's resilience and compassion were qualities worth valuing. Zinar, now older and wiser, reflected on how far they'd come. "Perhaps logic isn't everything," he mused during a private conversation with Laura. "Perhaps there is wisdom in embracing uncertainty." As time went on, Laura and Callan found themselves spending more moments together, watching sunsets, discussing ideas, and simply enjoying each other's company. Neither of them put a label on their relationship, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the understanding they shared, a bridge between two vastly different worlds. One evening, as they stood side by side looking at the stars, Callan spoke softly. "Do you think we'll ever truly understand each other?" he asked. Laura thought for a moment before answering. "Maybe not completely, but I think that's okay. Understanding isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to ask the questions." Callan nodded slowly, his glowing eyes reflecting the night sky. "Then I suppose we're doing all right." In the end, the story of humans and the Valith wasn't about perfection or finding easy solutions. It was about taking steps forward, even when the path was uncertain. It was about learning to see beauty in differences and strength in unity. And as Laura and Callan gazed at the stars together, they knew the journey was only beginning.